Ooh, what's happening, man? Um, man, I got so deep off into studying, I almost forgot that I was supposed to talk. um, so yeah, I wanted to talk about egregores, and not to say at all that it's a topic that is not discussed. What I thought of earlier today is a kind of application for them. I think that, or I'll say it like this: the times that I've come across beings discussing egregores, they were essentially just explaining what egregores are and giving examples in some cases of what egregores are. And so, um, I'm going to give my perspective on some very, very well known popular egregores. It may be upsetting to some. If you are familiar with me, you know I don't care. So, you know, ooh. Um, but then after that, I'd like to get into what short but stimulating conversation and some comments on one of my videos led to. I kind of touched on it in an earlier video, in a pregame video, but I have some more on it. And it's going to seem like I'm skipping around a little bit because I'm about to mention a couple of the deities, egregores, that I feel like are components of this. But, it's we're just having a conversation. So, some examples of egregores that have already been created. And, I'll preface this by saying, like, in no way am I a professional, you know, theologian or I'm not a professional anything. I don't even like the term or title professional. I think that, to be honest, that is a word that is used to create exclusivity. It's a word that's used to create a caste system and hierarchies and all of these other negative concepts and constructs that we use, um, whether we benefit from them or not. It's silly. It's very dumb. I had that epiphany the other day talking to Void because I was about to call myself a philosopher, and then something clicked in, and I was like, "Well, I'm not a philosopher." And I was like, "No, fuck that. I am a philosopher. What are you talking about?" So, the first egregore that I will use as an example would be, let's use Santa Claus. I'll use that one instead as the first one. So Santa Claus um, is, and I think all of these egregores are based in lore. So they're based in stories and documentation and information that is on varying levels of, um, let's say, truth, not fact, but truth. And I say it that way because fact is generally always provable. It's something that you can show evidence for. It's something that you can support with documentation, right? Truth is subjective. Truth is subjective. I'm saying it like that because I got into some very goofy, like, back and forths with some Abrahamic people. I think I spoke on that already, but they are convinced that truth is objective and that theirs is it. Ugh. That's gross. So, and I'm not saying Christians are gross, I'm not saying Abrahamic people are gross. Just, if you can't compute the concept that your truth does not equal the truth of other beings, that is a weird place to be. That is a weird place to exist in. And I kind of feel sorry for that, because if your truth, your very subjective truth, ends up not being the truth, not being fact, that's gonna, I mean, your truth not being fact for anyone is discombobulating. You know, it could be earth shattering, it could be soul crushing, it could be a lot of things. But if you're that convicted, like you can't even admit that this is just the truth for me, and there are some other people that share versions of my truth, you believe that a book that you know very little about, and, you know, spoken laws and verbal tradition, if you believe that is absolute truth, you know, nothing to argue about. Is just very strange. So Santa Claus has some lore. I won't say it's documentation, because there aren't Bigfoot sighting pictures of Santa Claus, right? There's many stories. It's almost like Santa Claus almost kind of registers on the same scale as Jesus, right? Because you've got these many different iterations of the same being, the same deity, that have slightly different stories, slightly different versions of themselves. That's kind of why I'm choosing Santa Claus first, because an egregore is not generally exact. You can almost view it as a shapeshifter in that sense, right? Because, you know, Santa Claus in North America doesn't have, you know, well, he does have helpers, but in North America, he has elves. His elves do not travel with him. They don't travel with him. They're not helpers when he's doing his actual work on the big night. It's just him, his sleigh, and some reindeer, and a magical bag that has, you know, a portal inside of it that he pulls toys out of, right? But if you go to other countries, in fact, many European and Eastern European countries, Santa Claus, I believe Sinterklaas, there's many different names. I'm not going to go through all those. There's plenty of channels that broke down Christmas and broke down Santa. Mind Unveiled did a good job. Jay Dreamers obviously has some videos that do a good job. There's lots of channels. You can go through my subscriptions, pick a channel that looks like they talk about stuff like I do. They have a Christmas video talking about all of that. But the ones that I mentioned are good. You can go to these countries within Eastern Europe and Europe, and you'll find multiple stories, multiple iterations of the same being, with similar but different names. But in that region, he has a helper, and that helper is almost his polar opposite. Where Santa handles all the positive stuff. He gives you presents because you've been good, you know, spreading cheer and blah, 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 blah. His helper, I keep wanting to call him Black Phillip, but that's from The Witch. I love that movie. I think his name's Black Peter. It's something remarkably racist. It's something pretty fucking racist. But, you know, that morphs. You can go to other places, and there is essentially a demon that handles the bad children. In any sense, you know, when you move around the realm, when you move around the plane, you see different iterations of what you know to be the same thing. So you can see, you know, when you're in Russia, or you know, Lithuania, or you know, any place. They have very similar versions of the same being who does a similar thing, but the tradition, the lore that's attached to this being can be very, very different. In fact, again, when, you know, all those channels that covered Christmas, I think many of I'll say many of you, but you know, many beings learned that Christmas is a very dark. It's based in a dark tradition. It has very dark origins. You know, in some situations, what is described is not a pleasant thing at all. It's very traumatizing and horrifying. You know, terrorizing. There's mention of eating children. There's mention of beating and kidnapping children. There's connections to the orphan trains. There's, you know, and that leads me to believe and theorize that, like many other stories, it's potential. There's duality. There's the potential for it being very literal, which I am not above believing. I believe in the metaphysical. I know I can be very critical of things, but I do that for a reason, and I feel like that's an obvious reason. Or it can be something that grew from a very grounded story and had a lot of myth added to it. Whether it's to conceal the real story, which I think in that case would be a very good possibility. You know, kidnapping kids for orphan trains and you know, taking parents and them just disappearing and creating orphans. Like the implications of the overall story itself, if you take away some of the metaphysical aspects of it, or if you take away some of the lore, and then you look at the times that many of these stories and lores began, you can see the possibility of them explaining certain events in what many of us are coming to see as a more clear depiction of history. I still, you know, have my thoughts on history and whatnot. I really don't think that we have even the tip of the iceberg on what the truth is as far as all that shit goes. But Mind Unveiled did a very, very good job connecting the dots between many of the different egregores that are Santa Claus, and I can't remember. I keep trying to remember the other entity, the evil entity. I keep wanting. My brain keeps saying Kraken. It's obviously not the Kraken, although that would be hilarious. But you'll find it. It's very popular now. I don't think many of us knew about him when we were kids, but is very popular now. Starts with a K. But they did a very good job connecting, you know, not only, you know, the names and all that stuff, but making a connection between the orphan trains, the Cabbage Patch operations, Tartaria, like, and they always do a good job with that. So that is a good explanation, Santa Claus. Another explanation would be Jesus. Jesus is an egregore. And it's not to say that Jesus in some form or fashion didn't exist, because I honestly don't believe that. I think a lot of people that move in the circles that I move in and whatnot have some sort of like traumatic thing with religion that has caused them to view all of that stuff the same way. I think Jesus did exist. I think Jesus was most likely a student of the mysteries. That could explain the times where he went missing, That could explain the time, or the explanation of that being in the wilderness. That could be travel. I've heard a couple of people, or at least one person, hypothesize that during that missing time frame, uh, you know, Jesus was traveling around and learning the mysteries from other enlightened beings like, Buddha and even um, Thoth. Um, Hermeticism, alchemy. I think that that's the case. If I'm honest, that's what I think. Um, that would allow for the capability to um, accomplish the feats and deeds that he um, is alleged to have accomplished. There are different, same thing as with Santa, there are different versions of Jesus that people worship. Um, when it's said, oh, Christianity is across the realm, it's present in all these different, you know, countries and cultures and all that. That's true, but you know, um, if you retroscopically look at the spread of Christianity, even then you can see the cherry picking of values. You can see the cherry picking of books from the Bible. You can see um, different beings writing different versions of the Bible for their own means. It's a lot like the Book of Eli. Really, really good movie. Denzel Washington. That was always a very enigmatic movie to me because be, it's a good movie. It's an apocalyptic movie that does a very good job of portraying that well, but more so than anything, when they explain that the entire idea, the entire plot of that, if you haven't watched it, don't listen for a minute, is to use the Bible. They don't have books anymore. This is after an apocalyptic event, a nuclear event. So books are few and far between, and they're in rubble. And so um, when the main antagonist explains that the reason why he has his search parties of very terrible people out basically just looking for books, he explains that he's looking for the Bible, and he's looking for the Bible so that he can be, for lack of better explanation, he wants to be a new, not Messiah, he wants to be like a new Pope. He wants to be able to control everything. And he sees the power in the Bible. He sees how it brought, whole kingdoms, whole countries to their knees. And I always thought that was a very, very poignant, point out that the movie was attempting to make, and I think they made it, honestly. Um, Obviously, you meet a bunch of beings that are closer to that system, that belief system, that maybe didn't like the movie or thought that he was way off in his, uh, interpretation of what the Bible is, and therefore what it could be used for. But, I mean, objectively, it is that. It is that, and it can be used for that. Does it mean that is not a good book? No. Does it mean that book is not designed very, very, with intense complexity to be able to do multiple things? Absolutely not. The Bible is a very useful text, but the fact remains that it can be used to manipulate, it can be used to control, it can be used to enslave and brainwash. You can look around today and still see that going strong heavily. especially in times of need or times of, pain and agony and strife and confusion. It is very powerful. Um, I mean, in a way, you could almost even say that if you personified the Bible, it's an egregore. It's a book controlling people's lives. It's a book indicating what beings think that they can and can't do, with rigidity. Um, Very intense, very powerful. But, same thing between Jesus and Santa Claus. Not saying that Jesus is Santa Claus, because, we have more kind of, I don't even want to call that documentation. We have more text um, detailing Jesus and things that he said, things that he did, and so on and so forth. But you also have, in the same way as Santa Claus, beings that are manipulating that information, adding to it, taking from it, and leveraging it for their own means, for their own purposes. And, it's essentially using beings' own power against them to create these deities, these beings. And imagination is a very, very powerful thing. Belief is a very, very powerful thing. Faith is a very, very powerful thing. You can accomplish magnitudes through these tools, especially if you're using others. It's powerful within yourself, but it's very easy to not be able to actualize that, because it's, especially at where we are in our juncture, it's been robbed of us and we've been co-opted. And so it's very difficult for, beings, even myself, it's very difficult to remember and truly believe these things that we are capable of. I believe we're capable of them, but at the same time, since we've been controlled for so long, since we've been occupied for so long, we've been prisoners of war for so long, it's very difficult to, step back into that, especially once you take into account that our memories have been messed with, our, oral tradition has been messed with, our history has been, every aspect of our existence has been heavily manipulated, subverted, and essentially used against us. And so I think this is no different. And I'll get more into that in a minute. But so, I think that one's fairly self-explanatory. I don't want to go too deep into that one, because my aim is not to argue with Abrahamic people in the comments. I think that another good example of egregore tulpa is one that not only has some mystery around it, but also has the opposite polarity of energy forcibly attached to it. And I have been very intrigued by that, and it's a big part. There is no big part. I study a lot, I research a lot, so everything is a big part, but it's something that I've paid a lot of energy to. I don't like the word time, but Lucifer, the idea of Lucifer, not Satan, Lucifer. These are two different titles, two different egregores, and that also goes for the devil, the use of the name or title, the devil. These are three completely different energies, three completely different beings, if you want to look at them that way. And Lucifer is one that kind of perplexes me a little bit, because many Abrahamic beings, and even atheists, it seems like everybody lately, And you could put that on social media, you could put that on Christianity, but regardless to what is perpetuating it, it is holding. It's not being corrected or explained in depth. And one of the things that I mean when I say that is, if you look at the name Lucifer as it relates to the Bible, real biblical text only refers to Lucifer by name one time, and it's a mistranslation of someone referring to Nebuchadnezzar II. So technically, there is no mention of Lucifer in the biblical text that most beings tend to worship from or study or read, or whatever they may be using the Bible for. What I have found is that there is a delineation between Lucifer and Paradise Lost. That's definite. That's definite. And I haven't read that in so long that, I for one, barely remember any of it, and also I was way too young to really understand the concepts and themes and constructs that were being built in that work. So I'm gonna read that. I say read because I might listen to it, I might watch an interpretation of it, whatever. But there's way more. I mean, that story, Lucifer is one of the main characters. But it is just that. It's a story. It's a book. It's a fictional work. You know how I feel about fiction. I've said that before. But to take a being from a completely different text. Paradise Lost is not a part of the Bible. It's not a part of the Nag Hammadi. It's not a part of the Enuma Elish. It's not a part of the Emerald Tablets. It's not a part of any of those things. It is a separate work. To take that name and use it in, kind of unison and almost kind of semantically as the devil or Satan is very strange to me, and I don't understand it. This is a public ask. If someone can explain to me how beings are making the connection and associating Lucifer with the Bible, that doesn't have to do with that scripture that was misquoted, misinterpreted, I just said the word like 2 minutes ago. Mistranslated. Good, goobity. Please reach out to me. I do very much want to know how that has been injected into that culture so effectively. I don't understand it. Another aspect of that is when people say Luciferian. People say Luciferian a lot. They say Luciferian, they don't mean the same thing. So this person might mean one thing, this other person might mean Illuminati. There are Luciferians that are just devil worshippers, they're Satan worshippers. But they say Luciferian because of the Abrahamic groups talking about Lucifer. The fact is that actual Luciferianism is more about knowledge and integrity and, caring for... It's very strange. And, one of the beings that helped me to learn more about that concept was Brother Yosef. He has a YouTube channel. I don't know if he'll be... I think if you search his name and Lucifer or Luciferianism or Luciferian, even just the keystroke monitoring or the fact that videos are automatically transcribed, you still should be able to find it just by searching those things, because I don't think that the name of the video is that, but he goes into that for a minute. and it really helped me to like make more sense of it. But the question still remains, why is it that both the name Lucifer, which has all kinds of etymological, hopefully that's the right way to say that, um, like explanations, you can break down the different parts of it. Luz, if I'm not mistaken, is light or fire. It has a whole etymology, and for those that are into astrology or astrotheology, it's even explainable there. Venus, Ishtar, like Prometheus. There's something weird that seems to be ignored, and I ask this question to see, has anyone asked this question before? Has anyone said, hey, Lucifer's not in the Bible, so why do you keep calling this evil deity, this horned god, Lucifer, when the actual horned god would be Samael, Sackless, Yaldabaoth? I talk about him all the time. Fuck that dude, right? Very confusing to me. It seems like a scapegoat job, like a hit job. And I've tried to search and do research, but all I've found is Paradise Lost. I found some connections and delineations between Enki and Lil, and Jesus and Satan. That's a weird one. It doesn't really work that well. Although I will say, Billy Carson does like an explanation that is easy to follow, at least. I just kind of like am unsure of if that's what I would settle on as an explanation. But that is an egregore that seems like it's being used as a defense. Like someone, the real being that is like that, pinned their actions and like their optics on a totally different being. It was like, nah, he did it. That's what it feels like, because when you look into Lucifer, the morning star, which Jesus also was referred to as the morning star, there's a lot of delineations between Jesus and Lucifer, also Jesus and Satan. I don't know about Satan, but I'm saying this just in the ways that I've heard it referred to. So I'm not saying Jesus is Satan, and I'm not saying any of that other shit. Just these beings are compared to each other, and if you pay attention to the way that these texts are written, God does say that He is, good and evil. He does say that He controls everything. He does say, especially if you go back into the Old Testament, that was a psychopath. That was a very, very malevolent being, just working humans out. Just working humans all the way out, making them do weird shit, doing weird shit to them, making them kill their kids. But no, wait, stop, you don't have to do it. Like, very weird stuff. Lucifer is referred to, or the snake in the burning bush story is referred to as Lucifer, but that's never said. That's not true. Like, these are things that people wholeheartedly believe and teach each other and preach to each other, and yet there is not only is there no evidence of that, so it's an assumption. It's something that they heard someone say and then they just perpetuated it, but they get angry at you, me, for pointing that out. That's the strength of an egregore. That's the strength of manipulation and indoctrination. And so all of this leads me to my thought that I had earlier. As I'm having this conversation with Angel, like I said, it was like auto writing. I just kind of responded without really thinking too hard about it. And then once I saw the comment, I was like, oh, I theorize that there is a potential for creating egregores and then pushing them to society, to the civilizations, to actualize these egregores to later use them against us in war. And it is a theory, and it's not an exact theory. So, and what I mean by that is, I could mean literally creating egregores to later like set them loose and do what they are, you know, notorious for doing, or blue beam, or technology of another kind. Like, we have no idea what technologies they have other than, we hear some stuff about blue beam and hologram technology and suits and all kinds of shit. It's not impossible. If a being has a full mech, armor suit, but it looks like skin, then they can fly, they can be way stronger than you, they can break your bones, they can lift you, throw you, they can do Superman shit. And if you were to see that, you wouldn't, for one, you wouldn't know that it was technology, and for two, you've already had these things imprinted in your mind. So if they look a specific way, or if they just say to you, after doing a bunch of crazy shit like lifting houses and throwing people, 50 miles, oh, I'm Jesus, I'm God. If they were to say that, you would most likely believe that. I've been like kind of putting it in my head, like once this shit pops off and I start seeing stuff that, they want us to believe is literal rather than some kind of projection or some kind of like fake trumped up thing, I'm training myself to not care. And I know you hear me say that about a lot of different various types of things. This is another one. When I start to see that shit, I don't care. Either it's real and has the potential to attempt to hurt me, or those that I'm around, or those that I care about, or it's not real and it doesn't fucking matter. So I've been training myself subconsciously to just be like, whatever, dude. It's one of the many reasons I like watching horror movies. It's one of the many reasons I like watching science fiction movies. I like showing my brain things so that they don't surprise me later. I like showing my brain things so that I can create way more crazy shit myself. And so, I think that there's a very strong case. I won't say that I believe it wholeheartedly. I won't say that that's what's actually happening, but there's a strong case for that being one of the many tactics that could be used on us, as a fractured family. And unless I see the beginnings of it now, so I'm not saying this in a way that's like, oh, that'll never happen, but unless we find each other and get together and remember and get back into the things that we're capable of, we're at their mercy in a way, right? I mean, the things that they have, they don't just have guns, they don't just have missiles, they have so much technology. A lot of it's public too, and you still don't know about it because, most are in a headspace of not caring about any of that stuff. They don't care about any kind of, disclosure-y type stuff. They don't care about any, black project stuff. They don't care about geoengineering. These things affect them, but they just see it as, different stuff. Oh, well, I can't do anything about it, so why should I care? Which is a cop-out. If you care, and I care, and he cares, and she cares, we're giving ourselves more power with each integer, with each number. So, each new being, that has found their way back to at least the group, even if they're not family, even if they're not, us, they're not 21 grams, if they are of the position of, hey, this is wrong, I want to do something about it, they don't have to be us. They don't have to weigh 21 grams. They don't. That doesn't matter, you know. And I mean, it's difficult to look into these things because I can find plenty of information on the many different technologies that could lend to this type of thing, and they even speak about it. You know, I'm not sure if it's. I think the book is called Project Blue Book. I don't remember where the guy's from that wrote it or his name, but I know they gave him a very hard time after he published, and I know that there are, you know, pieces of contextual evidence being shown to us right now. They're slowly drip dropping these videos of holographic technology. Some of the videos are real, some of them are fake. They want us to believe that they can be touched, that the holograms can actually be touched, and that they can touch you. Until I see that, I don't believe that. And it's not to say that I don't think that that's possible. I think that if it were possible, there would be way more than that one video of some kids at some kind of event or, you know, some sort of zoo thing, something, where they're petting holographic animals. I think that that's a fake video, to be honest with you. It's the only one I've come across. They said it was like 7D holographic they called it something crazy, but I think that a lot of it, even outside of egregores, I think a lot of things are being claimed and a lot of things are being shown that aren't actual. You know, and it's the same thing I talked about with that whole you can't trust video anymore stuff that I said. You know, there's so many beings that if they see it on Instagram or the news or on a streaming service and a documentary, whatever, if they see it but not in person, they still tend to believe it. They you know, they don't affirm to themselves that I'm seeing something right now, and my brain can't tell the difference between that being real or depiction. Your brain cannot tell the difference. It just takes it in as information. It's why your dreams can feel so real to you sometimes, because you're still seeing it in a way and you're experiencing it. So you can make the argument that dreams, you know, are real in a way. You are experiencing that. You are seeing it. It's just not being it's not being recognized by anyone but you. And by that I mean you can go tell someone, hey, this happened in a dream, so I'm an assassin now, or I'm a microbiologist now. They're gonna look at you and say, what are you talking about? You know? Because they didn't experience that, they didn't see it. But it was very real for you, even if just in those moments. Some people have near-death experiences. You could argue that that could be a dreamlike state, hypnagogic state, DMT induced state. That could still be considered a dream, and to those standing around you, you just look like you're dead or in a coma. And so these things become very quickly become semantics, and it chalks up to your experience and your perception of them, your definition of them. And so it would be very easy to manipulate these very powerful minds, computers that we have in our skulls, to create, you know, egregores, thought forms that actualize, tulpas, either from a metaphysical sense or from a, you know, technological sense, or it may even be possible to do a combination of the two. We just don't know. That's why I like to think like this, because if I've already considered it as a possibility and it turns out to happen, I won't be as surprised, which means I can react quicker. I can not let it fool me. I can, you know, leverage it and take advantage of the situation to help us. Many different reasons. In any sense, I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that there's much that we can do about it, especially right now. There's the obvious, you know, banding together, unifying and whatnot, and helping each other to remember, hey, they haven't proven most of the stuff that they claim. We just know maybe that they're doing X, Y, Z. Maybe they have bunkers. Maybe they, whatever. There are bunkers, and there are, you know, gigantic dumbs deep underground military bases and whatnot. But I'm just saying the technologies and the things that they claim to have, even with the patents and things like that, I believe those patents because there are enough of them that you can see them use to, and they don't broadcast it. They don't tell everyone, hey, we just patented a method for remote viewing, and we've been using it since the Cold War at least. They don't, you know, advertise that information until lately. Very recently, there's like a campaign to let us all know the many things that they've been doing, which is sketchy, and no one is looking at it like that. They're just eating that shit up. I do think that it's very possible. I think that there are two applications of it that I can come up with so far. There may be a third, you know, kind of combination of the two, but it's at the very least something to consider, because it kind of goes in line at least with something that has been teased, prophesied on a large scale, meaning the blue beam stuff. So even if you have a hard time with the metaphysical stuff, that still leaves the blue beam. And with all the social engineering attempts and movie attempts, I'll call them tactics, not attempts, because they work very well. But video games, movies, comic books, TV shows, there are beings that believe in these things wholeheartedly now. And it's not I'm not saying that that's wrong or crazy or any of that shit, but this is not a binary system. This is not a black and white system. There are many, many different colors and flavors to this information, to these like things that could be postured as truth or not. And, you know, some people accurately say, hey, they got Superman from this civilization, and you know, they got from the Sumerians, or, you know, and they're not wrong. Or, you know, Wakanda being attached to the indigenous in the Americas, and being subverted to continue the falsity of African Americanism. That's based in some real shit. Like, it's not I don't think it's a difficult thing for them to accomplish these things, to be honest with you. A different form, let's call this one a thought form, because it's not in the form of a being. It's not an anthropomorphized being. NASA and space, right? Not one of you has been to space a day in your life. You haven't been to the Van Allen belt. You haven't gone into the atmosphere. You might have gone skydiving. That's about the closest you've gone to get into space or the moon or any of that shit. I guarantee I will never stop getting people saying weird shit to me about my comments on the moon or space, or, you know, the firmament, sky ice, you know, which there's a sky ice post on my Instagram very early on, though, so you'd have to scroll for a minute unless you're on a computer. But these concepts, none of them are proven. Even the sky ice shit, the sky ice thing just makes more sense to me than the space thing. None of the space stuff makes sense to me. You know, people, when you say that and then you try to use an example, they just say a thing and they don't explain it, and it doesn't actually make sense. Like, very basic stuff. And I'm not trying to start a flat earther or a hollow earther or any of that stuff conversation, because that's my point. We don't know. We don't know, and it can't be proven by any of us. So for us all to argue with each other over it is dumb and seems like the point. NASA has created one of the largest, thought forms ever, in my opinion. And it's weird because their lies are very easy to flip over. They're very easy to uncover. A lot of the astronauts that have said that were said to have died, on mission, on takeoff, on whatever, they're alive, dude. They're alive. I don't know what search terms or search terminology you would use to look for that, and don't use Google. Use like Yandex or use another search platform. Find one that doesn't censor as much, and I guarantee you'll find someone talking about how not only are these astronauts not dead, but they're public. They're very public. They have jobs. They look the same. They didn't change their faces. I mean, it's blatant. The shit is blatant. And so that comes together with, the experience that we all share currently right now. We've all seen at least one video of SpaceX recently, maybe NASA. I think there's just SpaceX videos of this, of them shooting stuff at the firmament and hitting the plasma that I believe is also associated with the sky, and they can't get through. And it either blows up or it hits the firmament and slides down that bitch like a rainbow, and being still believe in all that old bullshit. It's very sad, actually. So I mean that is a thought form, but very heavily believed in, and I mean there's even more examples like the moon landing. I'm not even gonna explain that, because either you know about the details of that and the director coming out and saying, yeah, I directed that, or you don't. So I'm not going to go through all that. It's a bunch of information, but if you don't know, go look it up. That's not real. That didn't happen. I mean, yes, there are telescopes. Yes, you can point them at the firmament and see stuff. But for instance, a star. A star was taught to many of us as children to be much like the sun, right? A ball of just fire, a ball of heat. And, it might be different colors, but it's because things burn different colors at different temperatures, right? Different frequencies. And so you go into it, maybe you haven't looked through the lens yet, but you go into it thinking, oh, cool, I'm about to see a star. And you think it's going to look like the sun or something like that. You try getting a telescope, a regular telescope, and looking at the sun with it. Actually, don't do that. I didn't tell you to do that. Don't do that. Not a good idea. You can do it with cameras and things like that, but that's not a direct lens looking at a burning celestial body. What you do see, though, when you look through the telescope or the camera, is a celestial body that looks more like a ball of plasma or water even. Many of them just look like water with color, maybe a color filter behind it, if that. I have 2 examples of that also on my profile on Instagram. Videos. One is of Venus, I believe, and the other one I think is, I don't know, I think one of them is a star, and the other one's Venus. I'm not positive, though. I put 2 of them up. I don't remember which ones. But they just look like light coming through pool water. with the lines and the waviness and all that shit. One of them looks like what is described in the Bible, a circle within a circle, a wheel within a wheel. But that doesn't prove that, it doesn't, that you can't take that and prove space. All you're doing really is proving that what was taught to many of us to be the case is not true. That's not a ball of fire. That's not the same thing as the sun. And so, you know, with these egregores, when they are created like that and enough energy and moments are put behind it, it's strong. Those that are, those that it's being used on will defend it to the death, and just be super defensive about it, or very insulting toward the other being that's trying to say, hey, I don't really believe in that. Like, these are egregores powered just off of you, just off of using your energy. So if I say, hey, I don't believe in the concept of what we're told space is, or the sky, these are just noises that our mouths make that were given to us by other people. And so that doesn't prove anything, though. I haven't been to space, so I'm going with the context that organization has lied from its inception. The beings that created that organization were weird. They were weirdos. One of them put a scripture about the firmament on his tombstone. The other one said he fucked up, basically. And there's many others. There's many others that do similar stuff and they feel bad about it later. Or they just make it to their, their last time frame, their last days, or whatever you want to call it, and they start spilling the beans, And I mean, it's almost become common knowledge, or at least common, I don't want to call that a theory, though, because it's truth. Many people know that is a position of the rest of, society or whatever. Even if they don't believe in it, they have heard someone say, oh, space, that's not real. The moon landing, that didn't happen. But they're not just saying that. They're saying it because they know it, because they've, in most cases, looked into it. Because you can either just say that it didn't happen and then, keep repeating the same kind of goofiness, or you can say that and then go, kind of solidify it for yourself, or double check it, stress test it. And if you do that, you can see very plainly, like, the landing didn't happen. You keep talking about the, Van Allen belt that keeps us within here and keeps radiation out. Like, all these things don't match up with each other, but I think beings don't realize it because they've been beat over the head with shit since they were toddlers. There are, pictures, books, videos, all that stuff showing you the cosmology of a planet over and over again, and the solar system showing you, spherical, heliocentric models of planets that in reality all we know is that they are two-dimensional things in the sky that light up enough for us to see them. And many of the assertions that they make about the space in between them, the time that they take to do things, all of the things are, made up. It's not provable. They haven't proven any of that shit. They just tell you that they have, and beings eat it up. I think a big part of it is because they have such a big budget and money, and beings are also indoctrinated to trust the government. So since they're looked at as a leg of the government, it's, from, well, why would they lie, all the way down to, well, they have a lot more money and resources, so they wouldn't be wasting it, right? They gotta have pictures, and if they have, just all this, these are all words. Prove it. Actually prove it. Don't make computer-generated pictures of shit and then say, oh, well, this is what the data suggests. This is just a rendering or a depiction of what the data suggests to us. That's what they currently do and have done for years. And they admit that. That's not a conspiracy theory. They did a whole piece on it on a news show. They brought the cameras into their office, the two dudes that at that time were making all those pictures and video clips of planets and stars and space and all that shit. They're in an office making them. It was amazing. So there's, different types of like thought forms. There's different types of egregores that can be created and then subverted or used against you to the means of whoever kind of conceptualized the idea, or whoever's inception it was. Like, it's not just a religious thing. I keep seeing people explain them as religious tools or religious figures or religious deities, but egregores and thought forms, tulpas, can be used in many, many different ways. And I think that we're doing ourselves a disservice by not paying attention to that at the level of, like, they show you a thing and then you just believe it. And I think sometimes it's even tested. The Miami, them goofy ass Miami videos, bruh. As soon as I saw one, I was like, there's no way other beings are going to believe this. Everyone's going to see this, and just like me, they're going to be like, bruh, this is fake. Why would you even put this out as a story? That didn't happen. For a day or two, at least, everyone was tripping. And I think there are some people that are still like, yep, it's demons. Those are demons. And I don't know if it's like a weird cognitive dissonance or if they're seeing something different than I'm seeing, because, maybe people talk about a separation, and sometimes I'm like, is this the separation they were talking about? Because this is crazy to look at that video and see the little goofy, like, little goofy floating, like, barely can see it thing. They were acting as if they were watching Independence Day 4. Just completely positive. Yep, that's an alien. Or yep, that's a demon. Or yep, that's the Anunnaki. I heard beings say all three of those explanations for that same video. You can barely see whatever it is that's floating there, and to me, it's translucent. You couldn't see it. It was completely translucent. Yeah. And then, the programming of the 8 to 10 feet over and over again. Like, this is how you brainwash people. This is how you also create thought forms. You also create egregores by, coming up with the thing and then repeatedly telling the beings that you want to assimilate, or that you want to take this egregore on and help give it power. You just keep repeating yourself. And when they say, no, I don't believe that, or I'm not sure, you just keep repeating it. And that's what they did, and they're still doing it. And so, honestly, I just wanted to, put that idea out and explain it in a way that gives it some sort of hypothetical credence. Because I'm not saying that that's definitely what's happening, but I am saying that it is not out of the realm of possibility, and I'm giving contextual evidence for why I think that, just generally speaking. And it also goes into, I have videos on my channel that are very rough, probably first draft, rough documentation of progress that I'm making in my research for my theory, right? The very first video, I'm very proud of it. I think I do the least amount of digressing that I do in any of my videos. But it talks about that. I talk about that in that video. And I didn't put two and two together with this concept and that concept. but they are very similar. The only difference is the they that's, getting us to create the egregores. Who is the they? In that video, the documentation #1 video on my channel, the interdimensional beings would be doing that for themselves, right? So they initially create, avatars or takeover, walk-ins, whatever you want to call it. They have avatars and they call themselves gods. And because they can do things that you cannot do, especially back in those times, there wasn't much that they needed. But once you see something done, or once you see a thing or experience a thing, it can very quickly become something that you want or need. And so interdimensional beings could do things like that. And if they choose to call themselves gods or aliens or fairies or whatever, the fact would remain, or the thought would remain, that those are interdimensional beings, and that they understand better than we do that they don't need to have a distinction. All of those distinctions are just semantics. We've attached a value to each one of those things, and they're different. But in reality, they could all be the same thing. And I made points that showed how that would work, the delineation between, the God beings or whatever, and interdimensional beings. And then I showed how throughout history, one possibility of how they could, adapt and adjust, why they would need to adapt and adjust. And so it kind of lends to that. This is kind of a similar thing, It's not to say that if that were to be true, then all would be lost and we would be, doomed or anything like that. I think it's very necessary and very beneficial to know your enemy, to know your enemy's tactics and moves, and to be not only prepared for them, but impervious to them. Like, even just on little shit, like how I said earlier I do when I'm watching a movie, like a horror movie or a science fiction, I tell my brain, this is not real what I'm seeing on the screen. And it might sound silly, but the point of it is, whether you believe it to be true or not, your eyes take in what they see, and your brain computes it. And that's it. And so unless at some point in that process you think to yourself, this is not real, or I'm watching a movie, or this is a holiday, unless you actively or subconsciously, it could work that way too, think to yourself, what I'm seeing currently is not real, then your brain may take it as real. And so it might sound silly to do something like that, but it is beneficial. Because honestly, if let's say it was a situation where egregores were created in a physical sense, in a blue beam holographic sense, then if you were to already have been, systematically training yourself to not give energy to or give fear to something unless it proves itself to be real, unless it proves itself to be a physical thing that can't harm you, then you might see one of these creations and be like, man, you're going to have to come up and shake my hand or something before I believe this. Because that's where I'm at. Once, if they try to do that Independence Day shit and just park some stuff up there, that's not going to change my day. How people respond to it will change my day, because I'm pretty sure most are not going to handle it like that. But personally, if I look up and see some cloud monsters, like some Jordan Peele some Jordan Peele cloud monsters, it's not, I don't care. In fact, one could argue that that's already being done currently. I talked about it before. I watch a channel called Mr. BB333 or something like that. I think a lot of us follow that dude. He keeps, for the past 2-3 days, he's shown pictures and videos of nope cloud monsters. Not eating people or any shit like that, but just kind of sitting up there like it's Independence Day. I don't care. I don't give a fuck, bruh. Do something. Because that seems to be the tactic, is just kind of like doing some shit in movies first and scaring the ever-living shit out of everybody with it. Not literally, but, you know, scary scenarios, scary topics, right? Tactics. And then it might be a year later, or it might be 10, 15, 20 years later. Then it just so happens that that same thing happens to end up in reality. That is a tulpa, that is an egregore, that is social engineering, indoctrination. So they can sit up there until, you know, I'm blue in the face. But until they actually do a thing, who cares? You know? Because I think the plan would be to just show you some shit up there and expect you to respond the way that the beings in the movie that you watched responded. That's what the plan is. That's what the tactic is to get you to respond the exact same way that was intended from the social engineering project that you watched previously. There have been many researchers, channels, you know, whatever you want to call us, that have been into this stuff for longer than recently, that have made the connection that, you know, those agencies, those 3-letter agencies, are connected to. Matter of fact, Hollywood is a leg of those intelligence agencies. I don't know if there's any, you know, documentation of that specifically, but you can, if you know how to research, you can see it. You can see them doing it, like the moon landing, like I talked about earlier. For you to be able to go get an established and well-known director to shoot your faked to shoot your faked NASA mission for you, that's crazy, unless you're already in Hollywood. What's up, Oz? I saw something that looked like a really suspect cloud above me at the beach once. No clue what the fuck it was. I just felt like it was looking at me. This was a long time ago. 2009. Yeah, man. The thing for me is that once I started... So, okay, recently, right? Think about Leave the World Behind. They talk about specific things happening, and then very soon after, those things either happen or start getting talked about in reality. That has been done for a long time, but they used to put more space in between it. Like Independence Day. That same concept of the ships just appearing and sitting over your city, sitting over your buildings, and ominous, you know, looming over cities and shit, that was 20, 25 years ago, if not longer, right? But that's what's happening now. That's what they want you to see now. And just because it's supposed beings, it's supposed people that are sharing these clips on social media, again, Hollywood is a leg of an agency. So they don't just do movies. They don't just do TV shows. They got dorks sitting in a warehouse making memes, making home movie type clips, like, you know, cell phone footage shit. They're doing all that. They have fake influencers. They pay real influencers. This is a war for your mind, and they will use any means necessary, and it's well planned out. This shit's been planned out for decades. And if they know the technology that's going to be dripped out to you, aka these phones, right? So they know in 1970 that you're going to have a phone that has a video camera in it in your hand, and you're going to be looking at it like this, and you're going to see clips on it and shit. They know all that shit decades ago. So to think that this is all just happening in a specific way because that's how the dice rolled, that's not true. All of this is by design. And at times it can seem like those of us that talk like this are frantic or, you know, too hype about it or whatever it might be. But it's because we can see this shit and we can also see many, many people ignoring the fuck out of it. Ninja Turtles had them in the, yep. Yeah, in the 80s. Yep. Yep. That is true, man. TurtleCon, that was cool. I love Ninja Turtles, bro. But, I mean, it's just weird to watch this shit. And then sometimes they'll even put the thing in your face, but not in the specific way that it is actually gonna be used. Like venom, right? I've talked about black goo a couple times. Black goo is a real thing. It is a sentient substance, you know, that moves. It has emotions. It can convey itself to you if given the right tools, if given the right means. And that's just the shit that I've come across. For all we know, black goo can communicate telepathic. There's no telling, but it is a sentient, non-god body being, and it's more like a Borg, where you can take a piece and put that piece over there, have this piece over here. They can recognize each other and they will try to come back together. It's been done in an experiment, documented experiment. So they show you Venom, the Spider-Man shit, Venom, call it a symbiote and give all these little soft, little tidbits, and you believe those tidbits so hard that when I talk about black goo, you're like, this nigga's crazy. This place is weird, bruh. Like, I know it sounds strange when someone keeps talking about, this is a simulation and this is that and this is this. And there's also disinformation attempts on beings like me that talk about these things. They put out just as much, if not more, fake beings that talk about these things, but then they also talk about like just straight goofy QAnon, like weird stuff that has no, like, I'm not attacking the Q shit. If you're into Q, there has been some stuff that has been prophesied that came through, but for the most part, all that talk about white hats and the Great White Brotherhood, and not in a racist way, there's a supposed order of enlightened beings like Buddha and Jesus and all these other deities and people throughout history that make up the Great White Brotherhood, and they're saving us right now. Kind of like the story. Okay, so let's say Anunnaki. Those that are just believing those things with not even a lick of contextual evidence, that's troubling. But beings will believe that Anunnaki shit. Matter of fact, there is one audio clip of supposedly a whistleblower talking to a senator or some shit, talking about how the buzz around the Senate, the buzz around the Congress is the Anunnaki are back and so on. So this shit sounded super fake to me. Like the whole point was to record this and then put it out. But aside from that, there's no contextual evidence for the Anunnaki being here. There's no contextual evidence for like them sitting up in the skies or doing any. You don't know that. I'm not saying that those things couldn't be true, but to just blindly believe them and join fucking cults. There are whole cults forming right now over the Anunnaki stuff. And I don't know what phase 1 stuff is called specifically. The risk people, the green light people. But there's no evidence of any of that stuff. And I'm not trying to attack faith, But at some point, you have to like weigh your shit out and say, okay, well, I can entertain this and see it as a good possibility. I hope it's true. But until you show me some of this shit, like, don't ask me for all my money, or don't tell me to do things that could potentially get me, bumped. Like, you just consider the things that beings are trying to get you to do or say or not do or not say. Because, I mean, even just on the level of, I guess he told his people to like put green lights in their house or on their porch. I heard him say that. What if when they start going around doing the Gestapo shit, they're looking for green lights? You just gonna do that because he told you to? That's wild. That's dumb. My bad. I went on a little thing. Let me see what you got going on. Turtle power. That's right. That's right. I feel like the best way to offset their efforts is to recognize what they're trying to eliminate from our programming. Very true. The real love, exactly. Manliness, yeah. I mean, they're systematically trying to take out the traits that we need to be able to even defend ourselves. I keep saying I'm not telling anybody to go out and do nothing crazy unless all of us are ready. Don't do shit because you're by yourself. That's stupid. Unless all of us are ready to get cracking right now, don't do anything. It makes no sense to do that. These are the things that disrupt the pride. Yep. Very true. That's the whole... I heard someone disclose that. It's in the fucking Rockefeller Manifesto. And it's in another kind of manifesto-y thing too, but it's definitely in the Rockefeller Manifesto toward the end. The comment says, yeah, it's really hard to determine what's real and what's fake. That is a part of their plan. They wrote all this shit out. It's in their manifesto. The Rockefellers have a manifesto. There's a couple videos of, interestingly, chicks reading the manifesto. Maybe one chick saw the other chick and was like, oh, I'll do that and I'll get, virality too. I'll go viral too. Or it could be some dorks in Hollywood in the CIA basement. But either way, that seems to be a part of the progression. The plan is to make us so unsure of what is real or what is fake that we don't know what to think. That is definitely a part of what they said that they were trying to do. And it's happening. When I look at some of the shit that people say, or some of the videos that people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're here, and it's like that Miami video, I'm like, bro, these are the people that are surrounding me. Y'all gonna get me killed acting like that? That's... You don't have more discernment than that? You don't have eyes to see better than that? They're definitely succeeding from what it seems, because even this is social media, so maybe all those people that are believing it, maybe those are dorks, maybe those are alphabet boy dorks. Ain't no telling. Ain't no telling. Oh, you're all good? Yeah, common sense is uncommon. I do think that there's there's a concerted effort to make us feel like there's less of us paying attention and less of us that are intelligent than there actually are. But at the same time, I think that there are less of... I have to say it in a specific way. I think that there's many aspects to most things. And when I say stuff about a simulation, I am not sure in totality what I mean by that. And what I'm saying is, I'm experiencing this, and so this all of this seems and feels real to me, right? So that in itself lends to the possibility that it is a a simulated experience, not a physical, like, or, that wouldn't be the right way to say it. Not some people say this is a computer program, like a video game, and we just think that it's real. But regardless to that, this feels so real to me because this is all I've experienced. So it could be a physical 3D terrarium type situation. The firmament could be like the glass on a fishbowl, and there are beings that are more capable, powerful, bigger than us, who knows, that are able to come in and out of this terrarium at will, change their size. There's all kinds of possibilities. But to add to that, there is also, like, I have a video called, is it in the first one or the second one? I have two videos about dreams. One is called, What Are Dreams? The other one's called, Which is the Dream? Not witches. Which is the dream? And I talk about the concept, the thought experiment. Like, I had a dream where it's what I assume beings are talking about when they say, they're astral projecting or whatever, because it felt real, and it was first person, so I'm in a body, and I just like being in this body, but it felt more real than this. That dream felt more vivid and more real than this does. So what I was kind of posing to the audience in that video is, taking that into account, is that the dream that I perceive to be a dream, or is this the dream? Because that felt more real. Is this the dream, or is that the dream? I had a similar conversation with Void the other day, and at first he didn't get what I meant, but then when I explained the phenomena of comas, people go into comas and have a full life. They get married, they have children, they wake up. None of that happened, but it was real to them. It was real to them, and they had all of their sensory mechanisms. They could taste, they could touch, they could smell, they can do all of the things that we do here. So, not being that being, not experiencing what they experienced, doctors would tell them, oh, but you were just in a coma, that was a dream. They may say back to that doctor, nah, nope, this is the dream, this is a nightmare, I want to go back. Are they wrong? Is it okay to tell them, well, you're mentally, off right now, and we're going to medicate you because this is real and that's the dream? There's no way to determine that. There's no way to determine that, and there's no way to substantiate that. Yeah, Jacob's Ladder, exactly. I don't like the new one. The new one sucked. But the original, the original is exactly what I'm talking, not exactly. It's a lot like what I'm talking about, because that one wasn't necessarily to do with sleep so much as it was just, he was slipping back and forth between two realities, two dimensions, which is the same concept, but it didn't have anything to do with sleep. But, that is, yes, that's what I mean. And, that's something that I'm not the only one that has considered that. I do think that a lot of beings like to kind of fib or lie about their capabilities, saying that they astral project all the time and they're in the astrals kicking it with blah blah blah, and oh, me and you hung out in the astrals last night. I just think that a lot of beings are sad and they're tired of this place and they're in need of some self-importance, some adventure, and so on and so on and so on, or just to belong, to have people to talk to. It's like LARPing, live action role playing. I'm not talking shit. I'm not trying to. If you're into that stuff and you actually do it, good. I believe it's real. But I think that there are a lot of beings that are like kind of so fed up with this experience that and then, you know, on top of being tired of this experience and all the other reasons that you might do something like that, there's also a lot of cults right now. And if you don't say that you do some of the things that those cult members do, like astral projection and, you know, summoning, you know, angels or summoning demons, then they're not really gonna, you know, mess with you as hard as they would if you're, you know, letting, you know, Papa Legbud take over your body and heal people or some shit, you know? LARPing, yeah, I use that one a lot because, I don't know, it's like the closest thing that makes sense to me. And again, it's not me saying that I don't think that's, I think some people do that shit. I think even the ones that maybe are playing it up a little bit, I'm sure they've done that before. Like, that dream felt like what people refer to as astral projection. I don't think that that's what that is. I'm closer to thinking that what I just said it is what it is, to be honest with you. But regardless, when they get to talking in light codes, which is just, you're just speaking in tongues. If you go back 50 years, they call that speaking in tongues, and it's working on young people. But anybody old enough or from the South, or like anyone that's come into contact with Pentecostals or, you know, the big mega churches, because some of them do that shit, you're speaking in tongues. And that's very creepy and manipulative. You know, not to say that light code language doesn't exist. I don't know that or not. But I do know when someone is speaking in tongues, and that shit is speaking in tongues. Stuff like that is LARPing. And some beings are doing it for money, and some are doing it for importance or attention. And I would almost argue that that's just as bad as the egregore shit. You're helping them. You're misleading your family and taking their money for readings and all this shit, propped up on, you know, the principles of lies. And I think that shit's lame. Currently going through something that feels a lot like a dream. Can hardly believe in my reality right now. I think a lot of people feel like that. Again, I think that that's the point of why a lot of these things are being done. Sometimes I think beings are like, well, why would they do that? That is one of the reasons why they would do things like some of the things that are happening right now, to knock you off your game, to make you think, is this real? This isn't real. But I think that there is a value to that for them, whoever them is, you know. I have some assertions and thoughts on that, but I try to remain very aware that I don't actually know anything. I'm just trying to know. I just want to know. So wait, when you say if I were to wake up from this, what I'm going through now, I demand to go back. When you say you demand to go back, do you mean come back here, or go to the real place? Yeah, there is a grip of beings LARPing right now. They know it. They do know it. They just don't want to admit that that's what they're doing. And I mean, you could argue the fake it till you make it, right? That's a lot of magical systems. That's what they tell you to do. Just keep doing it until it works. But most magical systems are also just psychology. You're just doing psychology. I'm gonna get so many messed up comments on this one, but I mean, that is what that is, bruh. Like, I want to learn magic. but I want to learn real magic. I'm not trying to do psychology. So all that, you know, the the Holy Guardian Angel summoning, the doing the Kalipoff, the 72 Goetia, all that is psychology, bro. I'm not trying to do that. That's not what I want to do. I'm kind of mad y'all had me wasting my time. If someone would have just said, "Hey, that's summoning aspects of yourself," I would have been like, "Oh, well, I don't need to do that. I'm cool. I've done shadow work. I'm good. I want to do magic. I want to do real magic, like the magician's magic, like not like Harry Potter, but like I want to do real magic. I'm not trying to do psychology. I don't need to do that." I think a lot of people are thinking that too right now. A lot of disassociation with the body. But I think that could also be explained by many of us are being taught and or remembering, or however it's happening for you, that we're not the body. Like, there is a feeling that many of us have that this is not all that we are. So, and if you adhere to or subscribe to the concepts of, even just physics, matter can't be destroyed. Like, there aren't, and even with that, you're lending a certain amount of trust, because arguably you could burn something and you don't see it anymore. But what has been asserted as a law of physics is that it can't be destroyed. And some things resonate with you and some things don't. And that's one of the ones that resonates with me, is that this is not it. This is not all. Once this goes, it's not just going to be pitch black darkness and you cease to exist. That makes very little sense to me. And it doesn't, it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't make sense to me. And also, there are too many, for me, believable stories of actual reincarnation. I do think, same thing with the channeling, same thing with the speaking in tongues. There are plenty of beings LARPing with that also, talking about their past lives and what gods they were and all kinds of shit. But I mean, that's just gonna happen with any of this stuff. When beings see that they can get attention through this shit, or they can make money, they'll do that. Which is sad to me, because it's disingenuous, but it's also like kind of muddying up the water, so you don't know who you can talk to about things and get tips or advice or readings or whatever you may be looking for. You look around and you're like, oh, these are all con men. These are all charlatans, so I don't know who to talk to. Even for the magic thing, I'm serious. I want to learn magic, but I can't find anybody who's not full of shit, so I just stopped looking. And hopefully, they say when the apprentice is ready, the master appears. I'm not finna call you master, by the way. So if you are watching this on the slick, master magician, I'm not calling you master, but I'll call you teacher or some shit. I bow to none. I refuse. I will not. Questionable in terms of LARPing, in some sense of allowing energetic beings to enter. Yeah, I just don't believe many are actually doing that. I do believe in inner dimensional, like, beings and tricksters and shit. I don't think that they would want to be in your body. I mean, maybe every once in a while one might want to do a walk-in just because it would be funny to them, or like sexual or something, maybe. But in a general sense, I don't think interdimensional beings give a fuck about being in other people's bodies. That's limiting. Why would they want to limit themselves on purpose? And then all the depictions you see of like possessions, they can't control that body, whatever that is. You know, excluding all the fake versions, all the fake videos and instances, which is most of them. The ones that present the most authentic or genuine, they can't control the body. They're just saying crazy shit and doing crazy shit. Like, I just don't think that that happens very often. I think that's movie shit that's been kind of pushed to, like, as a fear campaign and as a pre-programming tool. Many of them harvesting different things: money, data, energy, feelings, attention. Huh. Are you talking about the interdimensional beings, or are you talking about the egregores and tulpas? Yeah, if you found the right lady, you gotta keep that, man. Yeah, they say so. Praying is, I think we're really stuck on semantics, and beings are arguing over stuff like this. I keep getting into it with this dude that I actually agree with. We share a lot of similar theories and positions on things, but this one is so like stuck on you know on dogma that even when I say, hey, if you believe in this or if you believe in that, cool, that's good for you. But I'm still going to be critical of things that you say, just like I would be someone else that's like me, that thinks like I think. You're still a being, you still say things, and you have a YouTube channel, so I'm going to say stuff. Very sensitive and strange about it. But praying is just as powerful as mantras, just as powerful as verbal spells. Like, our throat chakra and our energy carries power. So whether you call it praying or mantras or whatever you call it, you're doing the same thing. You're applying your own kind of energy to a thing and manifesting it, and whether you apply that to a deity or to yourself that's a very personal thing. It's between you and you. That's it. Like, no one else should be able to tell you if that's correct or not. Speaking just on this thing, because I do think that there are beings, both Abrahamic religion beings and then atheistic or spiritual or whatever, all across the board, there are beings that are trying to like step on others or control others' belief systems too much. Like, oh, you're wrong. We have no way of proving any of that. I don't understand why anyone feels like they can tell someone else, unless it's an experience-based thing. Like, if I tell you, if you cut me, I'll bleed. That's truth. That is fact. It's not just truth, it's fact. But if you tell me, if you cut me, I'll bleed green, I can either take you at your word on that because I've never bled before, or I can say, I don't think that's true because everything else I've seen says I'm going to bleed red. Maybe blue if you're quick enough, but most likely red. And there's so many that are just kind of like stuck on believing and having faith in things without, proof, which is fine, until you start trying to push it on another being. Very, very strange. But then, I think there's lots of people like me that are like, hey, your your, whether I call it manifesting or mantras or praying, shouldn't matter to the being. Like, if your praying is moving, you know, the things in your reality the way that you want them to move, keep doing that. It shouldn't matter what another person says about that, regardless. No, it doesn't sound corny. Acid is one of the best things that I ever did in my youth when I was younger. All those trips, acid, mushroom, all that. I think that that is why I am how I am now. I'm so thankful that I walked the path that I walked, regardless to the many poopy parts of it. Yeah, I mean, there's the illusion of there being a lot of others. I struggle with that. I don't like to tell people that they don't have souls, but if you interact with some of these folks walking around doing shit, driving cars, having kids and shit, it'll make you wonder. I definitely am still wondering, like, do you have a soul though? That's why in some of my videos you'll see me say I'm only talking to those of us that weigh 21 grams. Like, I'm not trying to influence any beings that are confused about their total existence, you know, or beings that, I mean, I'm really just talking to those that my words actually resonate with on a real level, and not just a little bit. Pretty much just talking to them. I mean, my videos are for everybody, but when I start talking about us and I'm looking for my family and I can feel y'all out there, I'm specifically just talking to those of us that can feel and can tell that we weigh 21 grams. When this avatar goes, when it dies, I'm taking mine with me. Yeah, but I'm not trying to stay on it too long. I just wanted to get that egregore tulpa talk out. Plus, I have to urinate. Damn, he said be right back. I gotta go though. I gotta pee. I love y'all, bro. Pee.